Hello and welcome to week 5 of Leadership 625 Resource Management. So week 5 is a shortened week because the July 4th holiday on Monday. I hope everyone had a nice 3-day weekend. Because this week is shorter than the other weeks, with Monday being a holiday, the only assignment this week is a discussion post. There will be no written assignment this week. So the readings this week are from Power of the People, chapters 10 to 13, Project Managements for Dummies, chapters 12 and 16. So you'll be skipping 13, 14, and 15. There's still good information in there that you can read at your leisure, but the required reading are 12 and 16. And then there's a web article that I posted in my.workbook about bike shedding. A lot of the commentary in several people's discussion posts, especially during the first week, brought this article to my attention. This was a good week to introduce bike shedding with the micromanagement and the delegation and the working with teams. So bike shedding is when you're working with teams, it's a phenomenon that occurs where we spend more time on the trivial things instead of making decisions about things that actually matter, that it's actually easier to focus in on the trivial things. It's called bike shedding, is the term that ended up with it, because it's one of those things where if we're building a bike shed, that we're more likely to argue for days, weeks, whatever about the color of the shed than we are to focus on the actual functionality and make final decisions about those types of things. So it's really about meeting management and recognize when bike shedding is happening so you can stop it. Okay, so when we start in the Power of the People, and what I really like about this book, if I haven't said it before, is that even though there's really a kind of a human resource focus on it, and when I say human resource focus, is that it just mentions human resources a lot, is that the information in this book is applicable to so many things outside of human resource information. All of the data analysis and meeting techniques and putting teams together, everything that is mentioned in this book is applicable to all types of departments and projects and things outside of human resources. So chapter 10 is about knowing your data and understanding that there's no such thing as perfect data, but your goal is to get the highest quality data that you possibly can. And then discussions about how to deal with different data challenges, such as missing data. So several of you are doing surveys as part of your project. And so what do you do if a couple of people leave information blank? If there's an option within your survey to leave information blank and they just don't fill out fields. So how do you handle that? Outdated data. Normally, I know at least in finance, we always say 3 to 5 years of information is what you should use. However, in many industries, now with 2020 being the cutoff for COVID, so in March 2020, a lot of the time now we have pre-COVID data and post-COVID data. And it's really difficult to use pre-COVID data to try to make analysis about what is going to happen in industries as we're still recovering from this pandemic that had global implications. There's no data available. So you're trying something new, or you're looking at something for which no data has been generated yet. So you have to generate data before it can be analyzed. You have a non-normal distribution. So you don't have that perfect bell curve that you were looking for in statistics. There are outliers. So what do you do with those outliers? Do you remove them from your analysis? And then the last thing is inconsistent definitions. So inconsistent definitions are when you call things different things, or there's different departments within your organization. So you can say, so like at Warburg, we have what we call first year students. So there are multiple definitions for first year students. So we have first year, first time students, which is a federal government definition for federal reporting, which means that they're a first year student that has no college credit or less than 3 college credits when they come in. Or we have a first year student, meaning it's their first year at your college. Or they're a first year student because you have to have so many credits in your first year before you're considered a second year student, but they wouldn't meet that first year definition as the federal government calls it. So these inconsistent definitions where when we say first year student, and we could possibly mean like 4 or 5 different things depending on whose definition we're going by, which can cause problems with data analysis and reporting. Okay, knowing your technology. What technology do you even need to support and or achieve the mission of your project? What technology do you need to store and analyze data? What technology do you have available to you? What are you going to use to report data? How are you going to create reports? Do you have the availability to make dashboards and to do visualizations with tools like Power BI or Tableau? Are you going to put a report together in Adobe? Do you have, are you going to make graphs in Excel, etc.? What technology do you have available and how are you going to use it? Then chapter 12, we get into how to build our team. So in chapter 12, they talk about these 6 skills for success, and then they elaborate on these 6 skills. So like what follows under the business acumen, what falls under consulting, what follows under human resources. And they say that you need all of these skills in order to have a cohesive team that can actually get all of your work done. However, if you're just a one-person team or you have a very small project team, one person often has to serve multiple roles, or you have people that aren't available. You have skill sets that aren't available within your project team because you're 1 people or you're 2 people or you're 3 people. Then we get into the last chapter for this week in Power of the People, where we look at partnering for skills. So why would we partner with other people? Well, to get those missing skill sets. We have 3 people on our project team. They have these very specific skill sets, but we're missing somebody with this particular skill set. For budgeting reasons, we can't afford to hire, or we can't afford to train, or we can't afford, and so we need to find different people. Maybe there's a department that's working on a similar goal to ours, not the exact same project, but something similar. And so we can find a way to work together to use less resources. Technology that's available, other resources, the options for partnering. One is in-house, meaning it's in our department. We don't need to partner with anybody. We already have a fully skilled team in place and we don't need anyone else. Or we can insource, where we look within our particular organization and we find other people in our organization with those skills, or we outsource where we need to find people outside of our organization. Then we move on to the project management text. So chapter 12 is about developing the roles and responsibilities for your team. So who is on your team, deciding who has authority for decision making and team assignments, who has responsibility for what particular task, and how those people are going to be held accountable. This chapter also focuses on delegation, which is one of the most difficult tasks in both management and leadership, is how do we delegate tasks to team members? How do we trust team members to take things on that we know they're going to be responsible and accountable with the things that we assign them? One of the tools discussed within Chapter 12 is a responsibility assignment matrix, which is a tool that can be used to assign team members. And then there's also a section on dealing with micromanagement. So how do you deal if you are being micromanaged, and how do you avoid micromanaging? And then the last chapter in our reading is chapter 16, which talks about how we encourage peak performance from our team members, how we keep our team members motivated. That difference between leadership and management, where management is giving assignments and giving direction and telling them exactly what to do all of the time. And leadership is trusting them and developing them and motivating them to take those things and be responsible for them. So then how do we do that? How do we become viewed as a leader, not just because of our position or our title in our particular role, but how do we motivate the others around us and then sustain that motivation? And then there's a very small section at the very end about working with diversity, equity, inclusion in the team. It's really only about 3 paragraphs. It's not comprehensive, absolutely. So that is a brief overview of the things that are happening this week. Again, because it's a shortened week, there's only a discussion this week and no writing assignment beyond the discussion. And next week, we'll be moving into our balanced scorecard project. That is your final project for the class.